Hello, you are listening to Raw 12:51am. My name is Jack Clarke and I'm joined on the line by a very special guest, Mr. Dermot O'Leary. Dermot, how are you doing?
Hello, Jack. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. How's your morning been so far?
Very good. Yeah, I had an X Factor meeting this morning, so it was good. Yeah, just not with any of the judges, just some of the producers and execs and stuff. So we just sort of been have a breakfast this morning and just to see where we are. Really have a sort of a little planning. We're sort of already planning for the live show, so sort of see where we go from there.
Wow, perfect. That leads me straight on to my first question, because I think the question on everyone's lips is, how is preparation going for the next series? Are you looking forward to it?
Well, it's kind of it's getting there. Yeah, because they haven't confirmed the judges lineup yet. We haven't started yet. Now that would be normally slightly earlier in the year, but you know, we've still got loads of time, so no one's kind of panicking. We're actually just. I'm sort of more excited than anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll miss the guys that aren't coming back. You know, Lou's not coming back, and Nicole, I think, is probably one of the best judges I work with in doing that role. But you know, it's always exciting to work and meet new people, and so you know, that's kind of pretty much where we are.
Have you been given any hints or clues as to who the new judges may be, or sort of what direction
Maybe
the show's
one
going
or two,
in?
but nothing I could share with you.
Of course, yes. But this season's going to be your 11th season hosting the show. What is it that keeps sort of drawing you back year after year, especially given that a couple of years ago you sort of had a bit of time off and then came back only a year later?
Yeah, do you know what it is? It's just you never know who's around the corner, I think. And I don't mean that from a talent point of view. I mean, that's interesting to see. But for me, I'm in this game because I like people. I'm interested in people. I like meeting people. I'm interested in telling their stories. I like interviewing people. And, like, you don't meet as wide-ranging sort of cross-section of people than you do working on this show. You've no idea who's coming around the corner, and you've no idea whether they're going to be any good or not, and you've no idea what their background is. And so I think that's, for me, it's just an interest in people. And that's really, I know it probably sounds quite simple, but it is kind of as simple as that. You know, you just, and I love to see with the accents, I love to see them grow. I love to see them, like Raksu, for example, last year, or Grace even, you know, the top two. I love to see how people start with a lot of raw talent and then are sort of guided along the way. I mean, the people that win this show, I always say, the people that work hardest and the people that stick to who they are and kind of are aware of the person they are, and they're the people that have got a fair chance of success off the back of it. So it's good to see people how they get to the studio for the first time. That's always really exciting. I always compare it to a football season, you know, the third round of the FA Cup, or the first game of the season, or, you know, and then you get to the FA Cup final at the end, and it's just great to see that kind of progression in people who are. I always struggle to call people artists before they've earned the right to be called artists. So contestants and hoping one day to be artists. Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Talking about TV a bit more, I mean, there's a lot of talk that you could be possibly joining the Top Gear team next season to replace the recently departed Matt LeBlanc. Would this be a sort of role you'd be interested in, or are you sort of too busy with other?
So. I mean, I love my cars, and I love, you know, there's nothing I don't, I'd be flattered, but I've never. It's weird actually. It's one of those sort of jobs that you read about, you're linked to, rather than anything concrete. So you know. I'd be flattered because it's such a great show, but I don't think I'm right for it, if I'm honest.
I can see what you mean and where you're coming from. But how was it that you first got into sort of TV and radio? When did you realise that you really wanted to work in the media industry?
I think I always wanted to. I'm a TV kid, I guess. So growing up in the 80s, you know, television was by far and away, and cinema, I think, was by far and away the most glamorous thing. You know, this is before social media. This is before the immediacy of streaming on demand. So what went out on telly was what you watched. So it was far more probably of a collective experience. Not that I don't think that happens now, but it certainly happens less regularly. And so, you know, we weren't allowed to watch too much telly, but my parents weren't too kind of strict about it either. So I think we had dinner watching telly once a week, like on a Saturday, and so the glamorous Saturday night television always appealed to me. And then I I thought I'd love to be an actor, but I didn't really. I enjoyed doing Amdram, but then I think that I think theatre is always a lovely compromise, because not a compromise, but it's always a lovely avenue, because when I speak to my mates that are actors, what they love about theatre is it's live and you do it, and it's very immediate, and I think that's the bug I got with live television quite quickly, and radio, was just how is the immediacy of it. And I much prefer it to doing pre-recorded stuff. So I kind of wanted to give it a go. I had no idea really that I'd get the opportunity I was given. And then when I did, I was lucky enough to, and a lot of this industry is luck. And don't get me wrong, I work hard for the opportunity in the first place, and then when you get the gig, then the work really starts. But I was lucky enough to I started behind the camera, so I graduated from Middlesex, did politics at Middlesex, and a minor in kind of communication, well, not communications, kind of film and culture.
Sure, yeah.
And then I started as a runner, so I sent off about 300 letters at the time, got mostly no's. I got a couple of job offers. I was able to get one. I worked as a runner for a couple of years, started researching, assistant producing, and all the while I was thinking, well, I wouldn't mind giving hosting a go. And then I was at the same time as I was a runner, I was doing work experience for BBC Essex. And after about 6 months, they said every Saturday, and they said to me, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I wouldn't mind giving kind of front and mic a go." And they sort of handed me the car keys and a mobile phone, an old blocky mobile phone, and they said, "Right, get to Billericay versus Grays, some kind of like non-league football match, and just do reports from there." And so that's kind of I sort of learnt on the job, and then I started in telly properly, and I was a warm-up guy for Mel and Sue, and by then I'd done one pilot. I'd sent my showreel off to one of my showreels. I sent the picture off to this company I'd heard that was doing a pilot for a buddy I was working with, and I got a screen test, and I got another screen test, and I ended up getting the job. Nothing came of the pilot, but I was able to get a showreel and an agent out of it. The same agent I still have today, and then then it's kind of attritional. Then it's literally busting your ass to get to auditions, but also anything from working in telly, which I did. I was researching and stuff, and there was a couple of months I was on the dole and doing anything that I could do, some bar work or whatnot. And so it's just you just put the hours and the effort in, and then you hope it pays off. And to be honest, if it hadn't have paid off, then I would have worked in telly behind the scenes and probably been perfectly happy doing that. But there's something about live telly that's definitely probably I get more satisfaction from doing that than I do from anything else. Live telly and radio, so that's kind of, I'm lucky enough to have that sort of passion satiated.
So a very sort of organic sort of way to the top, really. But moving on.
Yeah, I think it's the best way to the top, if I'm honest, Jack. I think I think work, and by the top I mean working. That's I think how you qualify success is by the fact that you carry on getting work, and that's kind of the most important thing. Because we work in an industry that retires you. You don't retire it. So you by carry on working, that's how you define success. And obviously, then it's all about, when you first start out, you take the jobs that are offered to you, but then it's about being choosy without being too precious, and actually just picking shows that, and I've always been pretty disciplined at this, picking shows that really interest you and where they can take you, and stuff that kind of branches out your knowledge and your expertise, I guess.
Yeah. So moving on to radio, a frequent and very popular sort of segment of your BBC Radio 2 show was your Saturday sessions, which many thought of as sort of the Radio 2 version of the Live Lounge.
Live Lounge, yeah.
Yeah. Who was the sort of most memorable act you had on the show, and are there any artists that you would have loved to have had on the show but you never got the chance to work with?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I think that we were lucky enough to get some very big artists sort of very early doors in their career. So we gave Amy Winehouse the first Back to Black session, I believe. I mean, there's a couple of people who said that, so and I'm not sort of precious about it. If someone else did it, then fair play to them. But I know we were certainly amongst the first to give her her first session on the Black to Black album. We were definitely the first to give Adele the first session on Someone Like You. So those are the two moments that probably stand out for me. I think we were the first show to get Bastille on as well. And then, for me, it's like, I mean, I suppose that the legends, like, I've always been a massive Springsteen fan, so the idea of getting Springsteen on anything would be, career highlight.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. One major event that sort of many people forget you were involved in was the announcement of Michael Jackson's This Is It shows at the O2 in London. Yeah, which turned out to sadly be his final public appearance before his passing. What was it like being involved in such an event that had so much expectation, anticipation, sort of surrounding it?
Yeah, it's a lot of these things kind of, I wouldn't say they pass you by, but you don't really take stock while you're doing them, I think, largely because stuff happens so quickly around it, I guess. With that, I remember I was ill, I had food poisoning, which I so rarely get. And my agent called me and said, they've asked you to introduce Michael Jackson and interview him tomorrow on stage at the O2, like just outside the stage, the main O2 bit. And I said, yeah, sure, okay, I can. Yeah, I'd love to do it. When is it? He said Thursday, and I think it was Wednesday when I got the call, and I naturally just assumed that was in a week's time. I said, oh yeah, well, it'll take me a couple of days to get over this because I'm, throwing my guts up. And he went, no, it's tomorrow. So I had to sort of put aside food poisoning and start doing my prep, and then it was that weird thing where you don't really know how to prepare for something like that because you've no idea really. You're not properly interviewing him. You're introing the guy on stage, and then you're asking about the tour, and you want to try and make it as individual as possible, so you put your own stamp on it. But then the day came, and I was out kind of talking to the crowd, and luckily that's kind of what I used to do when I used to warm up for Mel and Sue on like lunch years ago, and I was a researcher on that show, so I was kind of confident about talking to the crowd. But after I'd be out there for maybe an hour, and then it'd go into 2 hours, and he was kind of running slightly late, and he was getting later and later, and I was just thinking, this is really odd. And then the crowd were kind of getting restless, and we played the video a couple of times of this is it, and then and I think he must have been about 2-3 hours late, and finally he rocked up, and I expected him to come out and do this kind of big, guys, this is it speech, and he came over to me and he just said, he just whispered in my ear, and I was like, oh, what's he going to say? He said, is the teleprompter on? And I went, what? He said, the teleprompter, is it on? And I said, yeah. Okay, thank you. And so he went out, and then he ignored everything that was on the auto cue. I think they'd had something written for him about the fact this is his last tour. And he just essentially just said, this is it, because this is it, and I love you guys, but this is it. And then just punched the air, looked at me, punched the air again, gave me a hug, and walked off. And I was sort of just sat kind of bemused, because if I was a fan, you're caught between that, wow, I'm just in Michael Jackson. I'm a fan, but I mean, we're talking fans that have turned up and been queuing there for 6-7 hours. You're caught between that, and you're sort of looking at each other. You could see these fans looking at each other, going, "What is he talking about?" Because it wasn't nonsense, but it wasn't particularly lucid. And then but actually, the weirdest thing I took from it was how he gave me this kind of, he came on and he sort of gave me this hug. And the weirdest thing I took from it was how great shape he was. I thought he was fighting fit. So when people asked me afterwards, oh, what's he like? I was like, you know what, he's in really good, he's going to come back and do really well in this tour because he's in really great shape. And then sadly, 3 months later, he died.
Yeah.
Which is awful.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's sort of very overwhelming.
There's something kind of darkly comic about it almost. Like, you're hugging this guy and thinking, wow, he's in great shape. And then the poor guy passes away.
I see what you mean. But keeping on the sort of theme of huge televised events, I mean, you obviously had Soccer Aid just last week. You had the Royal Wedding in May. Would you say you get sort of nervous around any of these shows? Surely there must be some sort of apprehension sort of going on inside you when you're about to step out in front of a worldwide audience.
Do you know what it is? It's just preparation. If you prep, then you feel, at least I feel, pretty confident doing my job. If I'm not prepped enough, nothing has to be prepared within an inch of its life, because it's live television, so you want it to be, you want to be able to go off, not necessarily on a tangent, but you don't want to worry about the unexpected happening, because that's live telly. But it's all about kind of knowing on each sort of scene or sequence number, we call it in telly, where you're going. Just knowing where you're going. If you know where you're going, then you can let, you know, circumstance take over yeah, and if someone wants to, you know, go off on an answer, or if they go off script or whatnot, then that's fine because you know where you're going. It's all so. For example, both with the Royal Wedding and Soccer Aid, you take like the Royal Wedding. I took two weeks off and just read, and just did my preparation. And similarly with Soccer Aid, and what, you know, I'm sort of helped produce Soccer Aid as well, and that's a gig that you work on for at least, you know, you go for meetings months in advance leading up to it, and then so you know you're by the time you get there, you should theoretically be playing in the sandpit. And that never happens, but as long as you're fully prepped, then you get nervous, but you don't get apprehensive.
I see what you mean. Something that's very close to your heart is your range of children's books, Toto the Ninja Cat, which have been flying off the shelves and have been a real hit with families across the country. And the second's due out in September. What was it that inspired you to write these books that have become so popular with young readers?
Well, it was my cat, really. I mean, I wanted to. It was the year I didn't do X Factor, and I had a couple of ideas, and one was a documentary I did about the Battle of Britain, which I really enjoyed doing, and the other was I wanted to write. And I had about 3 or 4 ideas, and I did a book a few years ago. So I went in to meet the publisher, and I said, what ideas most formulated? And we've got a cat. We've got 2 cats, Toto and Socks now, and Castilda sadly passed away. And we have, she's blind, and she's been blind. Toto's been blind since birth, but she's got these incredible reactions. So me and my wife just sort of had this kind of almost alter ego for her, where she turns into this ninja at night. And I just thought it's actually quite a sweet idea for a story. And then I started writing it, and I sort of pitched it to the publisher, and they liked it, but they said, okay, go away, work on a chapter plan and synopsis, and, you know, see where you are with it. Brought it back in, they really liked it, signed me for a couple of books, and so I've just finished the second one. I've got about another 3 or 4. The idea is that she's part of an international ancient order of cat ninjas that help keep world leaders in check. So the idea is that every world leader has a cat that's, unbeknownst to that said world leader, is actually a cat ninja, just in case humans do what humans do. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed doing it.
Over the past few weeks, I've been gathering a few quick-fire questions from the members of the radio station. First up, Sophie Thomas asks, from all of your years on the X Factor, if you could select one contestant who you feel should have won the competition, who would it have been?
Well, I really liked... I mean, there are certain people you feel you get a soft spot for. I suppose it's been my first year. There was a Welsh guy called Rydian who just had this incredible voice, and he was kind of nuts. He was kind of dressed up in a big fur coat and had this like massive big bouffant hair, white hair.
Blew everyone away. I remember. Yeah.
You remember him?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And so I'd say Rydian probably, because Rydian he had this incredible operatic voice, and he would have been a great winner.
Yeah. Along the same sort of lines, over the years there's been a number of sort of novelty acts, so to say, on the show, from people like Honey G to Wagner. Of all of them, who was your favourite or your most memorable, do you think?
Oh, I think Honey G probably, or maybe Jedward, because the guys kind of got it and didn't get it, and Honey G was like, if you spoke to the music team that year, for as much as we were all sort of scratching our heads and just going, is this for real? They all said that Honey G probably worked harder than any other contestant they had. I mean, she was literally from Monday through to Sunday. Like, she'd be rehearsing, practicing, always had time for the kids that came down to the show. So it was, yeah. I mean, it's an odd phenomenon, and you know, I never really accepted the kind of cultural appropriation thing. I think if that's the music she's grown up listening to, she has every right to sing it.
Exactly, yeah.
But yeah, but you know, it was odd, but I thought she was great.
Yeah, she was very entertaining, I think, yeah. Next up, Ed Farrer, our programme controller here at Raw 12:51am, wants to know, when you go to Subway, what do you order? He's placed specific emphasis on the salad and sauce options you go for.
I'm not a Subway guy because I find the bread too thick.
I see. What would be your fast food of choice, would you say?
But the odd occasion I've been, and when I have been, do they still do Philly cheesesteak?
Yeah, they do. I think so, yeah.
Yeah, then 100% Philly cheesesteak.
Perfect, I see what you mean. Finally, you're known as quite a big Arsenal fan. What are your feelings about the appointment of Unai Emery to replace Arsene Wenger, and how do you see this next season going in the Premier League?
Well, I think no matter who we've appointed, I think the fans have got to get behind them. I've watched the last maybe 10 years at Arsenal with kind of almost my head in my hands sometimes when I see how our fans turn on our players and our manager when results aren't going well. And I think part of that is the Champions Leagueization, the FIFAization of football, in that everyone wants success immediately, and it's kind of a busted flush because one team wins the league and one team wins the cup and one team wins the League Cup and one team wins the Champions League. Not everyone can win it's not sports day. You don't just give out awards for the sake of it. I think where the frustration lies with the fans, where I completely understand, is we pay a lot of money and we watch the same movie every year, and I don't think any fan in their right mind thinks we can win their league every year. But I think people got bored of seeing us go out of the Champions League in February, go out of the FA Cup, and latterly certainly win the FA Cup last couple of years. But so part of me just goes, well, look at Wenger's legacy. He won 3 cups in 5 years, and then he rebuilt a stadium. And I a guy that's given so much to the club, I hate to see how he's. I get people's frustrations, but I hate to see how he's been treated.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
But if we have a new manager, I think we've absolutely got to get behind him and give him a chance. I think I think Wiltshire might go now, and I think that's a real shame because out of the 2 players, I'd 100% re-sign with Wiltshire and Ramsey. I think they're integral for the club. I think they should be our kind of captains going forward, and I think Wiltshire had a terrific season last year, and I think Ramsey has never really had the respect he's deserved as a player as well. So. And realistically, I think if we can get back in the Champions League and get a half-decent cup run, I think we're doing pretty well.
Fair enough. Will you be watching the World Cup? Who will you be supporting?
Well, I'm an Irishman, but Ireland aren't in there, so I'll definitely support England. And I spent a lot of time in Italy, but Italy aren't in there as well, so I'll definitely support England. And I think in a weird way, I think I'm more optimistic about this England team because they don't have a Galactico, because they're young, because nothing huge is expected of them, I think, and we have to keep that in mind as a nation. I think they could do quite well, but I think as long as you get out of the group stage and maybe you look at a quarter-final, that's the most you can expect, and then everything off the back of that is a bonus.
Yeah, I think it's key getting out of the group stage, and then just from there, you've got to see where it goes, really, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly, and let's not put too much pressure on them. Let's just let them play their game and get on with it.
So to close up, have you got any tips for all of our student radio members as to how they can sort of get into the industry? What's the best way to go about it?
Well, I think they're doing the most important thing, which is they're getting experience hands-on, and I think that's it can't be underestimated how important getting experience, hands-on experience is. So you turn up, I always say to, whenever I do talks and stuff about this, I always say, look, if you turn up with a CV and you've been doing work experience for 3 years while you're at university, as opposed to someone that hasn't, then you're immediately going to, go up the pecking order. Even, to be honest with you, I don't think necessarily you have to go to university. I think if you're doing something vocational, it's a very good idea, but it only really proves to an employer you can do 3. You've got the discipline to do 3 years, unless you're doing a vocational degree, which by the sounds of it, you guys are. So my advice is always get behind the camera, get behind the mic, and to get as much experience as you possibly can. And then when you get the job, or get the opportunity to work as a runner or as an intern, you absolutely bust your chops and make yourself indispensable.
That's really useful. Thank you very much, Dermot, for joining us here at
12:51am.
Good luck with what proves to be another exciting series of the X Factor.
Thank you. Nice talking to you.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye.
Bye, mate.